county of Lassen, the town of Woodlawn, et cetera. I mean, should we put something in there, because once this is gone, it's gone, we need to put some kind of performance bond in there or something so that if something's not happening, that there's a little bit of recourse or a benefit to the town of Woodlawn and the community. I mean, we can put a little teeth into it, because once it's sold, it's sold.
And I think the board direction to date has been that we don't want to, if we decide to dispose of it to someone, we don't want to cloud or restrict their ability to do what they want to do with it by doing that. We can.
Because selling this is one fell swoop. You're just creating a monopoly.
Aaron, I understand what you're saying, but I disagree, and I say let capitalism run its course.
Yep.
Don't look at me like that.
Yeah.
Let capitalism run its course. I mean, let it free enterprise system. People can bid on it. Whoever buys it, he can do nothing with it. He can build warehousing on it. He can do whatever he wants. It's not up to us to make that decision as government. It's up to the person that buys it, owns it, and sticks out and risks his money or whatever it be, the process. I say let capitalism grow.
And I full on agree with that, but my thought was, you have more than one option, that gives more than one person.
But I mean, if we start saying whoever buys it has to build, a certain size warehouse every year, put in McDonald's, whatever, nobody's gonna touch it.
No, just create a job or two, whatever the RFP
And
said.
it's probably not even gonna happen in that part of this county, and, I don't wanna get into that now, but, we have a huge competitor next door, very close, which is gonna forbid a lot to happen that we would like to see happen at Hurlbut. And it's probably one reason why nothing has ever happened at Hurlbut.
I think you're both right. And that's where I think the rubber meets the road, is what you decide that the worth of the parcel is will balance. They're not gonna pay that much if they don't think they're gonna do something, and and vice versa. So I think you're both right.
If the guy that has big plans to make this huge monopoly, he's gonna be a billionaire, that's
Great.
fine, and if it fails, it fails. That's
Great,
capitalism.
let him pay his taxes.
Yeah.
I think the only unique thing with this property is that it does monopolize what may become a public resource at some point, which is the runway.
Well, and you know my feeling about that. Was this- You don't have to hear my feelings on it. When we first had this property turned over, that airstrip was part of it. And then Desert Storm hit Kuwait. And they pulled it off the table. And then the second invasion of Kuwait, or Iraq hit. And then Afghanistan. What happened last night? Well, I'm serious. You're never gonna see that airport turn loose. I mean, after bombing in Syria, this could go on for another 20 years. It's just for that one incident. Where is that gonna lead this country? Nobody has any idea.
And
The Army's not gonna give up that airport. It's never gonna be, public, and I don't know, that's my opinion.
Be that as it may. So,
Good, bad, or ugly.
One more thing. And one more thing, there was talk earlier about getting this appraised and acceptable. The property just north of this recently sold, and I think that could more than suffice as
Per acre value.
yeah, comparative per acre value. And I don't know if that needs to be put in the record or not.
This property up here recently
yeah,
sold.
but you know what? That property contained a 1,000-acre conservation easement. Ducks Unlimited, $2,000 an acre.
What's the point though? Is the point to use that as a comp for purposes of measuring
But I
whether
mean,
you accept the
no, you gotta
proposal or
compare
not?
apples to apples,
No,
and that's
I-
not apples to apples.
Just put it in the funds, that we don't have to go out and get an appraisal, because there was one just recently right across the street that was, a somewhat comparable sale. I mean, nothing's gonna be the same
No, it's,
for
it's,
this year, but it's the closest thing that there is, and
That's
not
like,
gonna find
that's
anything
like
close.
appraising
that's completely different.
a walnut orchard to, alfalfa.
That's completely different.
They're both agriculture, really good.
This RFP does not obligate the board
For the
to sell it to the person with the highest proposal. We
We
retain
want
the
the person
ability
in there who's got the best ideas for our county.
if at the time we don't, and since we're not, it looks like we're not gonna put conditions on the buyer, then I think it does pretty much boil down to the price that's willing to be paid, because
It could be $1.98.
I mean, but we still gotta, we still have to,
She wanted to give us a bump.
you know,
$1.98 $2.
approve it, and I mean, I'm excited to get it out there, I'm not gonna be
I'm excited to get it out there too.
to vote,
I'm excited to get it out to the
to
public,
sell to a
let
guy that
capitalism
doesn't
rule.
have a good plan, you
Right.
know, I mean, no, because it could be a good asset for the county, and we need to make sure that we don't just sell it because, you know, $10,000 was the highest bid. I mean, with no plan for success, that doesn't mean anything as far as I'm concerned. So I'm looking forward to getting it out there, but also looking more forward to supporting the best chance for success. And if that doesn't come along this first time, maybe it'll come along in
Next time.
3, 4, 5, 7, 10 years, but at least we get it ready to
Be sold.
present, you know,
Kinda like-
opportunities.
Buying a house on the house market, someone said, if you buy this house, you have to put a swimming pool in the back.
Oh, your neighbor has one.
Yeah. Is there any more?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions and comments I just wanted to throw out for the record. First of all, I appreciate Aaron asking the question on accountability, because I think the last experience with the mistakes that were made in the document, and I know some of it they wanted to hang on Malcolm, and some of them they wanted to hang on Maury, and ultimately I think Marty took full responsibility for the failure to have a document that was credible and respectable, and I don't want to see us go down that path again, so hopefully the document, we'll take enough time to vet the document in terms of its accuracy, so we don't have the, I think the contempt for the process that still, I think, underlines a lot of public skepticism about what we're even doing today, and it will probably be years before we'll overcome that, and I think the grand jury took notice of it in their discussion. I don't agree with their analysis and their recommendations are finding fact, which we acted on last week, but nonetheless, I think it was a legitimate thing for them and a lot of others to do it, so I think accountability is very important. And, I get how to put it, from the perspective of the general public, the 5 board members aren't sitting here writing these documents. We're basically called upon to approve them. So the origins of the documents, I think if we're going to, go on the limb and take the action, we have to have a reasonable belief that, the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, and that. So the responsibility really does lie there. And I appreciate Mr. Egan saying that, but in this respect stops with him, and hopefully he has done the diligence that he does, and my experience in working with him is that he's very capable of doing that. So hopefully that won't be an issue, but it is an issue that undermines and underlies, I think, public perception about this whole proceeding even today and for the last several weeks and for the next several weeks to come. Performance is another thing, and one of my concerns is that this could be tied up. Already the Army has kind of a lock on what can and can't be done, because whatever is proposed is going to have to come back through the county to the Army to get their buy-in in order to utilize this. So this is an asset that isn't like the regular capitalism type, where you have the free marketplace going out and competing for and putting together. This thing has already got a big thumb on the prospect for development, and it's the U.S. Army because of the arrangement that we have with them in terms of, no reason why we even have that is because they've given us the blessing. Because this is all Army stuff and has been for 60, 70 years. So I think we have to recognize that. So I think some of the capitalism arguments that are made to try to champion this has got to be tempered by the fact that this isn't really a true capitalistic environment, and I think there's already some thumbs on it. I think we also, in terms of comparison to the previous effort, the reason why there was a lot of anxiety on the part of the board, and through the board radiated to the staff, and through the staff radiated out to the community, is the LRA properties that were the subject of those disposals was costing us a lot of money to just hold on to. We were between 60 and 80,000 at a minimum costing us annually and over a period of years, and it was, you know, a good 6 to 8 pushing towards 10 years. Adds up to a serious chunk of change, and we were criticized. We were damned if we do and we damned if we didn't. And we finally wound up deciding to do, and that proved not to be a good experience for the board. The difference is that this property here isn't costing us. There isn't this urgency because of the cost. I mean, it hasn't cost us anything to have the land and interest that is there. Very minimal. The amount of money we spent is the staff time that we've already spent to get things to a point where we could have this action today. So it's not like, in terms of comparison. So I think from the point of view, there was an urgency that underlined staff to try to push ahead and making mistakes at all, was to try to satisfy the fact of shedding off the hemorrhaging of the expense of subsidizing those properties when the Army finally dumped them on us back in 2004. So I think we need to recognize this. And then the fourth thing I think that needs to be a matter of record, because it was something that was interesting to me, and this came from the public testimony. So it demonstrates the value of having public testimony, but is raising the issue of this I-11 corridor, this idea of this new interstate that would go from Mexico to Canada that's being promulgated. I never heard of this here. This was something that was kind of new, but in the last couple, 2-3 weeks, I've had a chance to go out and investigate Google, and I was really amazed when you go out there and you search the documents that you could find. And I meant to bring my iPad with me because I actually have saved a number of the documents that I was able to capture. These are public documents by public agencies. This is not, you know, conspiracy theorists or anything else. These are actual working documents, and I think it's something that we need to be mindful of, not as it relates just to this property, but as it relates to our county. And it's something that needs to be, I think we need to start tuning into. I know when we have our next meeting with the Caltrans district director, and he was just here a couple of weeks ago, and all the meetings we've had with Caltrans, no one has ever mentioned anything about this I-11. But this I-11 has some potential impacts for northeastern California. And this is a screenshot I took. I found it on my phone. I knew I had taken some shots. But this shows the concept of where, you know, it's coming up from, initially it's from Phoenix to Las Vegas is what Arizona and Nevada have been working on, and they have been for some time. And I share a personal experience, and I'm sure some of you who've flown to Vegas and have driven south, but I went down to a meeting back in the fall of 2009, and it was back when all the stimulus stuff was going on, and Harry Reid's the head of the Senate, and I was kind of amazed as I left Vegas and I was headed to Lassen, Nevada, and you know, once you get kind of south of where Hoover Dam and Boulder is at, you kind of go over this little rise, and now you've got a long straight shot heading south. And I thought it was like, on the map it was only like this, but it turned out to be like 90 miles. I mean, it was like 2 hours of driving. But they had just laid down 4 lanes, brand new asphalt. I mean, they were still putting stripes on it. It was that new. And I thought to myself, holy moly, where's this road coming from? Where's it going? What's it doing out here where there was nothing? I mean, I literally could have put a stick in the steering wheel and you know, put my foot on the accelerator and taken a nap and just drove straight. I mean, it was that straight, and it was all brand new road. Well, in context of this information right here, it's part of, I think, this concept. They were working on building, you know, the freeway connection between Phoenix and Vegas as being the main focus. But now they've got that pretty much in place, so now it's a matter of looking at going north of Vegas. And that's what these 5 lines on this particular picture, I'll pass it, you guys can look at it. And so, interesting enough, on July 28, 2014, the Department of Transportation in Nevada, NDOT, along with the Department of Transportation in Arizona, which is ADOT, had published what we call the Northern Nevada Scenario, where they've actually been studying. It's a feasibility report they've currently been working on for the last year and a half, and they published the final draft of it, or the final copy that's been approved. And it recommends, of the 5 areas, there are 3 of the 5 are worth considering additional investigation. 2 of the routes they eliminate as not being feasible. 2 of them are kind of so-so, they may be worth looking at, but they didn't rate really high. But the one route that they actually rated as having the best shot at, pursuing development has this I-11 coming up what would be the equivalent of Highway 95 from Vegas up to the Reno area. And one version, the original version, had them actually using the 395 corridor coming up through Bishop, Mono, Mammoth, through Bridgeport, which is at a high elevation. They kind of rule that out as not being a feasible thing, so they kind of keep it down more on the valley floor in Nevada. But once it got to Reno, at that point, they had the choice of going straight north, like up through Burning Man, up there kind of east of Cedarville and into Oregon that way. Another shot has it kind of shooting back across towards Winnemucca and maybe heading up to Boise and making the connection in that fashion. And that route was considered possible feasible. The one going up through Black Rock Desert was not. But the one that had the highest rating was once they get to Nevada, they would actually come across into more or less follow the Tuscarora gas line, how it kind of goes up. So it would be, basically 395 north of Honey Lake. So they would probably tie into kind of right, my question is, where's the off-ramp going to be for this this property? I mean, with the base being right there, with that airfield being right there, I mean, I think the potential that this I-11 becomes a reality, and it may take a little while for it to develop the funding and so forth, but it basically shows it going right up, paralleling what is now 395 north, up into Oregon all the way, probably heading towards Canada into Washington. So I would recommend that we get, I've got it on my iPad, I actually saved the document, it's July 28, 2014, and it was put out by the Nevada Department of Transportation to analyze the 5 possible scenarios that would be in the northern part of Nevada as it's heading into Oregon and or Idaho towards the border. So, that in terms as it relates to this particular property, I think that from the private sector side, there's some real potential, and from the county's perspective, I think there's some real potential. But I think it's something that should be worth, like I said, until we had the public comment, in the last meeting or two, I was totally unaware that, and most people I've talked to are totally unaware of this, but there's actually some major work being done right now by the public agencies just to the east of us, and it has direct bearing on Lassen County and Onion Lake Valley.
Thank you, Jim. All right, so we're gonna take action now. So it's been with a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can we hold the vote, please? Sure. Madam Clerk, hold the vote.
Supervisor Chapman?
No.
Supervisor Alba?
No.
Supervisor Kyle? Supervisor Hammond?
Aye.
Supervisor Lassen?
Aye.
Okay, can I take the resolution and we'll get a new separate page, and then I will have you sign this? Okay?
Okay. All right, thanks for the good discussion.
We have a solid waste board meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We'll be here at 3 o'clock. So
We
just-
just-
8 minutes.
Redirect them to City Hall.
Well, 2 of us are on that board. so-
Okay,
So
well,
let's go through the,
Yeah.
Recreation.
okay, the last item on our agenda is page 10. What did you need?
Can I say something?
On which item?
Well, it's really, I need to get it put on the agenda because the way the recycling is now with the other ones not doing CRV, the other guy is giving criminal prices and really upsetting,
Now,
locking,
I think you want to go to the solid waste meeting for that.
to the solid waste.
Yeah, it starts at 3 o'clock.
It starts at 3 o'clock and that's where I need to be.
Where's that meeting at, Richard?
We moved them over to City Hall.
They're gonna, do you know where that is?
Right
Right
up
across
there?
from the post office?
Okay.
Okay. All right, item H10.
Okay, H10, Mr. Chairman.
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and board members, the board had directed staff, myself, to work with the Honey Lake Valley Recreation Authority to transfer a portion of our 720 Richmond Road Roosevelt school property to the JPA for the purpose of combining it with school district property and building a pool on it. That agreement essentially is that the JPA is going to conduct a survey, develop a legal description, and apply for a lot line adjustment to consolidate those two parcels after they get title to the school parcel. I don't think none of that's been done yet, but there is a sense of urgency in getting some sort of contract in place to facilitate that. It was approved, it was prepared by the JPA last week and approved at the JPA board meeting last Tuesday. We've made some requested changes to the purchase and sales agreement. The most significant issue that we find with it is that it basically is absent of a legal description because a survey hasn't been done. So what we have is a graphic, which we're not calling Exhibit A.
Give it to me. This is Exhibit A to JPA purchase
Exhibit
and
A
sale agreement.
to the purchase and sale agreement.
Started for life.
That depicts option 2 that was approved by the Board of Supervisors some meetings ago, which, and I've got copies if anybody wants.
Yeah, do we have
I
one?
need a Exhibit A.
Is that, which exhibit is it?
A to the JPA purchase.
And for the benefit of the recording and the record and all concerned, I added to the description of the name of Exhibit A by saying Exhibit A to the JPA purchase and sale agreement, 9/23/14. Clerk? Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that's making record, and I appreciate the opportunity
No, I-
to learn from your comment.
Well, that was spontaneous, because until now, I've never seen that many exhibit A's all in one spot at one time.
Very true.
So to continue on, I reviewed the purchase and sale agreement for substance. Subsequent to that, county council reviewed it, and we contacted Jim Curtis to get another set of eyes on it. Mr. Curtis has a preferred option for contributing the property to the JPA rather than the purchase and sales agreement. His preferred option is to do that through an amendment to the Joint Powers Authority Agreement, which in a lot of ways would be simpler, a less voluminous document. I think our consensus is that it could be done either way. We've had to essentially rush reviewing this, and we lack the legal description, but we feel that if we were to attach this as the exhibit to the purchase and sale agreement, I don't want to speak for county council, but that would facilitate this symbolic action, because this purchase and sales agreement in and of itself doesn't transfer anything. We will require review by the City Planning Commission, further action by this board, and acceptance by the JPA for a property transfer to occur.
Eventually, a quitclaim deed would have to be prepared to be filed, and that's where the legal description has to be
Yes.
intact. And
Well, it actually will have to be done prior to the lot line adjustment, which is also prior to the quitclaim deed.
yeah, well, anyway, so I mean, I don't think holding up this step of many steps, waiting for the legal description, serves any public purpose. So the graphic that you have here provides the essential information that would be necessary for this process to proceed. You know,
I
if we
think
had-
based on the graphic, both parties know or have a fair description of the parcel that is the subject of the purchase and sale agreement.
And this is-
That's the point.
And this is essential for the planning purposes that the JPA needs in order to come up with the proposed pool facility, which needs to be done first so they can then develop what the cost would be available or associated with that proposed project. And in the meantime, this would allow for the property parts to process through, so you have things operating parallel to each other rather than going step by step over, waiting for one to be done before you do the next, before you do the next.
Mr. Chairman, So in addition to Exhibit A to the purchase and sales agreement, there is also an Exhibit B,
Exhibit B to the JPA purchase and sale agreement of 9/23/14.
which is the natural hazard disclosure, which discloses floodplains and other known environmental hazards, which I've asked staff to prepare today. I'd like to include both of those if it's the board's desire to approve the agreement, and also to change paragraph 1A to read, land commonly known as a portion of 720 Richmond Road, Susanville, California, also known as APN 107-160-03, and to now read further depicted on attachment A as opposed to further described.
So that's,
On exhibit A with the name.
yes. Did you get that?
Yeah, so here again, we're gonna have them sign it with a change to that in addition to these.
Did you get everything you needed?
I think so. I would just reiterate that there hasn't been a lot of time to review this. I think it should be viewed as a symbolic gesture that will be followed up with further action.
What do you mean by symbolic followed up by further action?
Well, this doesn't authorize any transfer of any property. It's an agreement to work through a transfer. So I'll let the city manager speak to that as well. Because the board will have to adopt a resolution and have to get approval from the city planning commission and get a lot line adjustment completed and a deed prepared and approved.
All that has to be done prior to the resolution authorizing the quick claim. The actual transfer will come with the quick claim, and the resolution to approve that will be about step number 4 or 5 after this step.
And quite frankly, I think it's both the council and my preference that we do those things first, but we can make this work if that's what the board wants to do.
Emphasis on we can make this work.
So, before we go on to the old road, we'll
Next door,
demolish that.
next door.
Next one.
Well, the
I'm sorry, what was it?
old pool's first down. It's showing right up to the,
So the old pool is coming down,
yeah,
The
that's
new
part of our.
pool is gonna be built somewhere in this area
in the
right here.
middle area,
Yeah.
the cars are
But the site plan hasn't been
Yeah.
designed.
Yes.
That's what the JPA is gonna do next is,
Going right over the old.
you know,
But the old pool is coming down,
Yeah.
Yes.
as part of this project, what's the cost of that?
we haven't got that figure yet.
We got some quotes, haven't we?
No, we're out for bid right now on
And
that.
the asbestos in there? Didn't we get a quote on that years ago?
Yeah, we got the study done, and the asbestos is very minimal, and
For like 300,000, is that right?
Yeah, the county commissioned this study for lead and asbestos. It was a very thorough report, and it gave the percentages, and it was actually a lot less than was anticipated. The preliminary cost estimates for abatement and demolition at that time were between $250,000 and $350,000. We've also prepared, we've been able to get some assistance from county staff based on their project that they did with the old jail. And so we're optimistic that the final bids will come in quite a bit lower than that, but we're preparing the RFP now for the actual demolition so that we get solid numbers of what it will cost from different contractors.
if you get the right person bidding, you have a better opportunity, because the old jail was estimated between 150 and 250,000, and that company that finally got the bid and took it down, did it for like 72,000, it was well under $100,000, because he knew how to remove the asbestos stuff first, dispose of it properly, and then was able to do the rest without.
So just to clean up the site, we're probably looking at 200,000 to 300,000.
That would be outside, but we're looking at much less than that,
300,000.
much less than that in here. So, but we won't know until we get to that point in terms of the dollar amounts when those bids are open.
Richard and Marty, is this gonna have to go before the county planning commission too, or just the city?
No, because it's within the city.
It's gonna be Mr. Hancock's, you mean for the 65402 stuff?
Oh, I don't know, if you're to do this, whatever this.
Transfer the parcel of land to JPA, it has to first go to the planning commission. jurisdiction where the parcel is, basically, and that would be the city, because that's in the city. So it would go to the city planning commission to determine whether or not its proposed use is
Consistent with the
consistent
general
with the city general plan.
Even though it's county property.
Yes, it doesn't have
It's
anything
gonna
to
be
do with.
JPA.
Well, I know, but it's county.
Yes, it has to do with where the property is and not who owned it.
The next question I got is how is the valuation of this going to be determined for the, going forward as far as the part of it except for the county contribution?
That hasn't been discussed. We will have to value it for the sake of taking it off our inventory. And the auditor is looking into that, but there has not been any contemplated value assigned to it as far as offsetting what our contribution would be to the JP. I understood the board direction was at a no-cost transfer.
Right.
We're gonna take public comment.
If I could make one more suggestion. The contract calls for a closing date of November 3rd. I think that's not realistic, given the fact that we've got to do a survey, a lot line adjustment, planning commission, and come back to this board for preparation of a quick claim. I think we ought to give ourselves more time. I think this, just November 30th or something like that. I don't think it's reasonable to expect it to be done in 40 days. All those days there.
So what day?
I would say November 30th.
That's on page 2.
Yes, at the bottom.
And I don't think we would have a preference either way. The contract has the ability to be extended out if it's not done in time. And it's also, if it gets done earlier, then hopefully we can move forward earlier. But the other question that was asked that I didn't answer was that what this agreement does, it outlines those next steps that have to be taken. There are certain agreements that will have to be made with the county as far as, the JPA has agreed to put in a new fence for them along that property line, making sure that the access and everything that is needed is recorded properly and the correct easements, that the legal description is drafted out, that a record of survey is done, that the lot line adjustment is done. And those steps are outlined before that final step of the quitclaim deed. And so it's better to lay that all out in front than to say, let's see what comes up as we go. The latest one that came up was a general plan conformity question. And it's really a formality. It's already zoned public facilities, and it has a general plan designation of public facilities where a pool has already been. But we want to make sure we dot that I and cross that T and take it to the planning commission and get that done as well. So.
When does the planning commission meet and when is that anticipated?
The planning commission has regular meetings 2 times a month on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month, but we hold special meetings whenever there's an item that's time sensitive. So we can pretty much get them together any Tuesday of the month.
So you shouldn't have a problem getting this on the agenda before, say, the first part of November?
No.
Anyone else?
Yes, would you please clarify for me, does the property in question include the building or just the parking lot portion?
You mean to say the, Ms. Hodge?
This,
It's time for his medicine.
Sorry.
The proposed transfer of property depicted in the graphic Exhibit A to JPA purchase and sale agreement, this date, September 23rd, contemplates, what is that, 140 feet? Did I get that right?
Yes.
140 feet basically off the back of the Roosevelt School site, which is currently blacktop area for the most part. And
Dirt.
yeah, half dirt, half blacktop, and that would be dirt that would essentially be come a part of the pool site. Did I answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And when the JPA has its workshop, which is, the date's still being worked on, we'll be working with the design consultant to begin designing where the new pool would be located. And it's anticipated that it's going to be just to the east of the old building, kind of partly where the parking lot of the old pool was and part of this back parking lot here. The reason for this line being put there is to provide enough room for the new facility to be sited.
Okay, thank
So
you.
what it will be, we don't know, and the public will be invited to participate in that design phase. And the date's been bouncing around. Initially, it was set for October 7th, but that doesn't work out. And at some point, there will be an announcement as to when it will happen, but that will be happening sometime in the next couple of weeks. And that's why I think to the board, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important that we take, and maybe some people think it's symbolic, I think it's real and necessary that we take action today on this resolution so that, or this, to prove this, because I think the JPA needs that to be able to proceed forward with that design phase. And we have to complete the design phase in order to come up what will ultimately be the cost phase. And where the real, I think, you might say battle is going to take place is going to be how and what strategy will be used to propose the funding of construction of that facility. So we can't have that discussion until we complete all these other things leading up to it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All righty, we'll bring it back. So,
One more question for Richard. You said earlier in your statement something about Jim Curtis on his opinion. What was that again to you?
Well, he just favored an approach where the transfer would occur by virtue of an amendment to the Joint Powers Authority agreement, whereby both parties to that agreement, the city and the county, would have to approve that amendment, and it would just be that the county's going to transfer the property to the JPA.
Essentially, if I recall correctly, members of a JPA, government entities which form up a JPA, are free at any time to contribute assets to the JPA. And that can be cash, that can be personal property, or it can also include real property. And so the suggestion was made that as an alternative to a multi-page purchase sale agreement, that a fewer page, less complicated process could be an amendment to the JPA agreement, simply the county gifting essentially that section, that 140-foot section, to the JPA.
And my last question
Yes, sir.
is that Larry and Jim, they both sit on the board of the JPA.
Yeah.
And they also sit on this board. I mean, it's not going to be a conflict of interest of
No,
somebody
it's
that...
the essence of JPAs.
Okay.
The
If that's,
essence of it.
if that's true, then no JPA would ever.
Correct.
Okay.
Like the CHFA, the one that was on this morning, you know?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Like solid waste, like the airport.
Yeah.
And the reality is when we sit there as agents and representatives of this body. So if the majority of the board, the other three, don't feel the two are serving the interest of the board or the county, they can be replaced. It's kind of like you can make a motion to vacate the chair, it's always in order. You can make a motion to replace the two representatives to that JPA. So I mean, that's the same process.
One issue is slightly off topic, but it's probably worth being aware of. In our conversation with Curtis, we discussed the Susanville School District giving the property to the JPA as well. Them not being a party to the JPA, they don't enjoy the same ability to give property of value as the members of the JPA. And so, I think the consensus is that there probably is no value to that, but he did raise the issue that there could be a concern if the school district gave property to the JPA, and if there was value to that, could be considered a gift of public funds, because that's not within the school district's role to provide public services. just.
School districts build schools and provide education, they don't build pools necessarily.
The only reason I think that's important to us is that we're gonna combine part of our parcel with part of that parcel. If that's an issue for the members that are on the board, that probably should be clarified or addressed, or maybe some findings made that there was no value to bolster that argument.
I think that's a good idea, the findings could be easily found, that receiving that parcel with that old building on there to they pretty much wipes out it.
Well, actually, it would be the recitals in the resolution of the Susanville School District's board meeting that would express the value or lack thereof, frankly. That would be what I think would be the proper place for an expression of the lack of value of that parcel. Simply put.
The solid waste guys are waiting out the lobby corner, so to finish up.
One more blank in the agreement on page 4. There's contemplation of issuance of a title policy, and we don't have a face amount for that because that would typically be the sales price, but there is none. And I guess maybe I'd ask Mr. Hancock if he has a suggestion for.
We're actually waiting for the title company to let us know what the allowable amount would be, and it looks like it's gonna be between $200,000 and $400,000. So,
Okay. For
For the purchase of the.
For just our portion?
just for this portion.
How about putting in there in the amount not to exceed $400,000, so it leaves you everything from 0 to 400 back?
And really all it is that the protection in the title insurance, the way that works is whenever you're purchasing property, whether it be for $1 or for $1 million, in the event that there's a flaw in the description, in the reports that you got from the title company, and it somehow takes away the value or your inability, or it creates an inability for you to use that property, you purchase insurance through the title company so that if you can't use it, they will pay you that amount, which allows you to take that money to go and get a site somewhere else. And so it's not so much tied to how much it's being paid for, but what the cost of having to find an alternative
If somebody
would
gives
be.
you something for nothing, I would think that there is no value. And if there is a flaw, you have no other remedy.
But this is where, but you pay a premium for this insurance, and they have a scale of how much it's for. And so the JPA's intent would be to obtain title insurance so that if for some reason it cannot be used based on a flaw in the title, that there's,
Well, it can be used, we give it back to the person who gave it to us, and we either go out of business or we move on to something else. I don't see.
well, maybe I didn't explain it very well.
This isn't like a private sector type thing, this is totally different.
Right, but this is an insurance policy for the JPA, so that if that site can't be used to build a pool, that insurance company will pay them money to help them get another
So you're
site.
gonna make them fork over some money for you to go find another site, that's really nice of you.
That's why you pay them for a preliminary title,
Well,
for a
Well,
title.
to ensure the title.
I understand the value of that in the private sector, but I really kind of question whether that pertains to a situation like this.
I kind of agree. I'm not sure that the title company is going to issue a title policy on a quitclaim deed.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're
Yeah,
really willing to do that.
yeah, and we went over the insurance rates of what it would be based on the dollar amount. And it's really,
I'm starting to warm up to Mr. Curtis a lot more, so, yeah. Simple is better.
Well, if the JPA is going to require the title policies, why don't we just say that? We'll get a title policy that's acceptable to the authority.
Sounds good.
So what
So is there
are
an
we
amendment?
changing?
And how is the amendment to read?
In the face amount,
And so let's
To
go
be
to the
determined.
front, let's go to the right page.
In the face amount,
there's a blank in the face amount to be determined by the Honey Lake Valley Recreation Authority.
And that's page 4 of, wait for it. Oh, goodness. Last paragraph, title policies. What would be paragraph, section 5CI.
Of Exhibit A,
You know, we wanna make record, let's make record right. And I can be good at making record.
We got the letter V out of vocabulary. Now we got
Noting that
A.
Supervisors Chapman and Elmore are laughing hard.
I think we let the genie out of the bottle. Oh my
Maybe.
gosh.
It's been a long day.
Yeah. We still have another meeting that Tom and I have to deal with, so.
All you gotta do is the light.
Wait, maybe we want that to be in the face amount acceptable to the county.
Exhibit B.
Okay, where are you?
Owner's policy, now future.
Yeah,
Determined by the value.
yeah. And we'll just expect our representatives to advocate for it.
What's the deal? You gotta get it worked
Did
out?
you get the amendment? We've got,
Okay.
We trust you.
Okay. All right. So, did we get a second?
What's that?
Did you?
I think we got,
I don't have
I
a
didn't
motion.
know, I don't think we got to the motion. I was waiting for them to get through all their questions. Are we done with that part?
I think we are, sir.
I'm ready for a
The other
motion.
two
What's
things.
the other one? Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the amended purchase and sale agreement and authorize the chairman to sign.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Yeah.
All right, there's a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye.
Okay.
Richard
How
said,
did it go?
he did,
Did you vote aye?
Okay.
Did you vote aye?
barely
Okay.
could, you barely could hear it.
I tell you, I felt the ground shake over here.
Nevertheless,
What was that again, Aaron?
nevertheless, it
Was
was
that unanimous?
Yeah.
8-11.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's,
wait,
we got,
question.
get.
Okay, quickly.
Wait, Madam Clerk has a question, we know she's in charge.
So I'm going to have the chairman sign it, and we're gonna make changes to pages 1, 2, and 4. Like you
Yes.
said. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the chief probation officer recruitment has closed, and we have several applicants to review. There are 5 applicants. This, of course, is a board-appointed position. My initial review is that they all meet the minimum qualifications, so the board probably wants to interview all 5 of them. Plan to schedule that for a meeting in October. Just wanted to let you know that. In the meantime, the appointment of the acting chief probation officer will expire, and I plan to reappoint her
You already did.
until this new, until the new one's done. And that will come back as a, but the board will have to
Yes.
ratify that action. And I'll be going to RCRC this week.